trying to be a better person, regardless what you do in your day to day, I think people always respect you.
You obviously came up through the amateur ranks and went on to win an Olympic title. The pathway of starting at grassroots level, how hard is that? Is it getting harder?
It is very hard. It's difficult, but that's sport for you at an elite level. And no matter where you get to, it's always better than where you started. So I think, just roll with the punches, enjoy it. Don't go in there and put too much pressure on yourself because it's so difficult. But I do believe that, just taking part is fun. And if you don't make it as an athlete, there's so many other ways to get involved in sport in terms of commentary, management, promoters. So there's many ways to get involved in sport if it's too tough to kind of make it to the top.
What about the mental approach in sport? Obviously, it's incredibly important. How do you prepare? Because often before fights, boxers make disparaging comments between the two. What do you feel about that?
Each to their own. Life's about interpretation. I don't interpret boxing like that. So, the interpretation of boxing can be seen as trash talking, being vulgar, but my interpretation of it is discipline, regiment, healthy living. And I think little things is, if I can make my bed in the morning before I leave the house, I can definitely land a jab on someone's nose in sparring.
And you do that, do you? Do you make your bed?
I do. There's nothing like coming home to a tidy bed after a long day.
When you won the world title, when the announcer said, and new champion of the world, was that announcement as good as you thought it would be?
No.
Why?
It was when I beat Klitschko in April.
Ah, yes.
Because I feel like that day I was born again, because I went through something that can't be, that, no coach can teach you. It's like you taking a driving lesson 100 times and then it's just you on that motorway alone, and making it from London to, let's say, Sheffield safely, on time. It's an achievement. So I think, when I won the title, 2 rounds, it was good. I done what I was supposed to, but with the fight with Klitschko, I went through something that couldn't be taught, and it was about character. And I got there in the end, and I feel I was born that day.
Fascinating that when the ring announcer said, you're the champion, that wasn't as good as Klitschko.
It is fascinating, but it's the reality. I feel I was confident in beating Charles Martin. We was very similar in terms of experience, in terms of age. And anyone on my level, I feel like when it comes to the great minds of battle, as I said, it's the little things I do that make the big nights easy. So I'm very regimented in my lifestyle. But when I was dealing with Vladimir Klitschko, I haven't been a professional for many years yet. So in terms of experience, I'm far behind him. Vladimir grew up in Ukraine in times of, I think he was born around when it was the Soviet Union. And he had that regiment, that discipline. And I'm fighting a man who has lived how I've tried to regiment my life, where I see everything. I walk into a pen shop, there's a million pens. He probably walked into a shop growing up and there was 1 or 2 to choose from. So the way he had been raised is how I'm trying to conduct my lifestyle. So this was a battle of great minds, and everything that I went through, it can't be taught. This is a fight where it's a test of character. And to come through that fight, I feel I was born as a heavyweight champion that night.
And when you say what you went through, you've had a very interesting life, haven't you?
Yeah. I do think so my parents came from Nigeria to London. They've worked hard and they've learnt the system, what works, what doesn't work, being landlords, selling property, trying to benefit, themselves, and then had us. And I feel my parents, they work very hard. So it's hard to invest a lot of time when you're working hard and into your kids. So sometimes, my dreams weren't supported at a young age. So I found myself doing other things. But when it comes to a stage where I was old enough to catch the bus by myself, buy my own car, make my own decisions, I could kind of capture my dreams in my own hands.
How did your life change? Because, as I say, it was interesting to say the least, and you had a bit of a checkered life. Just talk to me a bit about that, if you would, and how your life changed, and what made you think, I can't go on the way I'm going on.
So when it comes to capturing my dreams in my own hands, I think with boxing, it was just me, my mind, and my opponents. With other sports, it was just for fun. I'd play football, I'd play a bit of rugby, but with boxing, I realised that it's not something I could play. if I wanted to be good, I had to take it seriously. So, as I've mentioned to you, I didn't mention about, I went from lifting 20 kgs in the gym to 100 kgs or running 100 meters in 9 seconds. We mentioned that I realized I had to change my thought process. So I realized boxing was a battle of the minds, and how do I become a better person? How do I become more regimented, disciplined, determined? And once I started ticking these boxes, how do I become healthier? Boxing became easier. So I realized it is all about how I conducted my lifestyle. And when you just want to be a better person in general, you attract positive people into your life. So it wasn't that I was a bad person, because we was brought up around respect, but I was so focused on being Jack the lad and wanting to be the bad boy, the cool guy, the funny guy, which doesn't really get the respect off of the people that I need to progress in life. I wanted respect from people that I feel had no real relevance of where I was trying to get to. So, when you want to be Jack the lad and try and convert to being the guy who puts his hand up first to answer the question in class, it's kind of a contrast.
And Jack the lad, that's what you were, really.
Yeah, that is what I was. But I was young and I didn't have any goals or, the inspirations that I had around me were people like my parents, but were very hard working. They hadn't mastered their craft. They were still learning their craft. So where I took inspiration from was what I'd watch on TV, what I'd listen to on my CDs and so on and so forth. So when I went to the boxing gym, for instance, my coach, I remember he was training me for about 3 weeks, and I went home and I was watching boxing and I saw him on the TV. And I was like, wow, this is the guy that's training me. And then he used to bring in his belt, his British, the British title belt that he had won, gold, beautiful belt. And I started getting inspiration from these kind of guys. And it changed my mindset. And being a role model is good, but with me, I always think it's important to be a real model, because no one is perfect. We all make mistakes and we try better ourselves. And that's what my interpretation of boxing became. How do I better myself?
And how has your life changed actually being the world champion, heavyweight champion of the world?
You've got two ends of it. I think it's an inspiration to my family, because the older generation have worked hard to pave the way for us. My cousins, I've got nieces, I've got a little boy now. So the older generation have really worked hard for myself, my sisters, my brothers, my cousins to kind of have a better life. And which has given us an opportunity to kind of follow our dreams, which is a blessing. So in that side of things, it's good to show them that their hard work wasn't in vain. We appreciate what they've done.
What are your immediate plans now for 2018? Just go through the diary, if you would, what you're going to do in the ring.
What I think can be a reality is I want to fight for the other championship belt. There's only 2 left. I have 3. There's 5 on the table. I have 3 of them. I want to fight for the 4th one, the WBO Heavyweight Championship of the world.
That Joseph Parker holds.
That's correct.
And is that likely to be your very next fight? Do you know that?
Yeah, I think, negotiations are tough. But in terms of the love of the sport, I won't let that get in the way from achieving my goal, because legacy is important to me as well. And I think we're achieving something that, to hold all 5 belts has never been done before. So I won't let negotiations get in the way of securing my legacy and what I could achieve in the sport. So I think we're 95% of the way there with completing with Joseph Parker.
And when would that be?
End of March, I would say.
And in this country?
It has to be, yeah. The British support, what we're achieving here is phenomenal. And I always remember when I was watching boxing, it was all about America, America, America. And that's, even being a world champion, you have to fight around the world. But it's nice to own the market here. We own the market and we're not rushing anywhere. Let the British fans enjoy staying on home soil for a bit. Let other people travel.
Tyson Fury, does he figure in your plans at all?
Of course. He's a lively opponent when he's fit. So I think he has his own battles and demons to face. And once he's got over them, he's more than welcome to enter a ring with me. It's something that we should be focusing on this year. 2018.
Unlikely to happen, though, because he hasn't fought for 2 years, and he would need at least a couple of fights to come back.
Yeah. With all due respect to Tyson Fury, I think it would be wise if his handler's got him a few fights, get the body ticking over again, and get that love for the sport back, a few wins under the belt, and then we can get it cracking.
Yeah, you use an interesting word there, love, and you've spoken so sensibly in this interview, and often boxers, when they're at the press conferences, say not very nice things towards one another. In a way, you know the difficulties that Tyson Fury has gone through. Would you love to pick the phone up or go and see him and do it sort of privately, away from cameras, and have a little chat? Would you like to do that?
Not anymore.
No?
I don't respect him. I don't have much respect for many boxers in the heavyweight division.
But you see, you're talking now like they do in the press conferences, so I'm surprised.
Because it's not an act with me. I'm being honest. I used to say very nice things. Because I feel like in tennis, in Formula One, in basketball, in football, they all hold each other in high regards. And if I speak well of Tyson Fury and I say what he's achieved is so hard and I respect him, it builds the credibility of the heavyweight championship belt up. But when Tyson Fury says Anthony Joshua's a bum, look at him, he's struggling against this opponent, it discredits everything I've achieved. And I think he kind of, not just about me, but what we're achieving as heavyweight champions of the world is phenomenal. But for someone in my own industry to discredit it, I can't respect that person. And I used to have a lot of respect for them. I understood how to kind of build Tyson Fury's name up, and not only his name, the level of what he's achieved, because there's going to be someone else who wins the championship belt one day, and I want them to feel the prestige of it. But if we have people like Tyson Fury disrespecting it, then I can't respect that person.
So, as a final point then, Joseph Parker, hopefully is your next fight, and Tyson Fury, you'd like to box him, but probably not until 2019.
And Wilder. There's a guy called Deontay Wilder.
Who has the WBC title.
Yeah, he's a big mouth as well.
So somewhere down the line, he could figure as well during 2018?
Yeah, these guys, I'm respectful, but I have to fight for my territory. I fought my way here. I'm a fighter, and I'll fight to keep my territory. So that's that fire in me. But on the other side of things, I'm humble. I'm content with what I have, but I'm hungry for more.
Well done on what you've achieved so far.
Thank you.
You've been a very good heavyweight champion. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
That's Anthony Joshua, who was here at the BBC earlier in the week. So, Kevin, first thoughts on what you heard there. I was fascinated that he said his best moment to date was the win over Klitschko. It even bettered when the ring announcer said new champion of the world.
Yeah, no, I think so, because it's what Klitschko represented. Although Klitschko, we must remember, had been beaten by Tyson Fury, and he was at the end of it. But he still had enough in him. And I think, the kind of fighter that Joshua is and the kind of threat that he represents is completely different to Tyson Fury. And he was awkward against Klitschko and didn't make the fight in the same way. So it was harder for Klitschko. And I don't think he respected the threat as much either. So I think he was caught out a little bit by that. But it was a boring fight.
Yeah, and he went through possible dates in his diary. First of all, March. Joseph Parker, he says the deal's 95% done.
Well, Parker is a smart boy. He left New Zealand. He plants himself in London. He starts calling out Joshua. Fought Hughie Fury, Tyson's cousin, beat him to retain his title. And so it gives him a little bit of a platform. That's all it's about. So now it's about business. What's the percentage that he gets for that fight in end of March, early April? And they'll sort that out.
Tyson Fury won't happen, but he says he does figure in his plans at some point. But that's not going to be this year.
Well, feasibly it could be. I mean, Deontay Wilder's the one.
Yeah.
I think early 19 is a time for Tyson Fury. That's if Tyson Fury can work it out himself.
Yeah, and Deontay Wilder is
Wilder's the big one, and he's a threat because Deontay Wilder is a maverick figure. He's vulnerable, but man, he can punch and he's quick, so he's a big threat.
And as Joshua said, he'd really like to hold all 5 belts.
That's difficult because the sanctioning bodies have to work together to achieve that.
And they
so
don't like doing that.
They hate doing that.
It was interesting because when we finished the interview, I spent about 20... Well, we could have recorded another half an hour with him, and he was talking all about the old fighters, the Tysons and the Lewises and the Holyfields, and I used to go to a lot of those fights, and I was just thinking, it's always to say those days were better, but chatting to Joshua, I was very impressed with him, the way he spoke.
Yeah, and also he's operating by this kind of deep moral code. He's kind of worked it out his life, and things. He's got there's a sequence in his life, and I think he understands what's important to him. But man, can he fight? I mean, he was hurt, badly hurt, having knocked Klitschko down.